This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Republican leaders have figured out what to do with the most reviled Supreme Court decision in our nation's history, establishing that Black Americans are not citizens of the United States and they are not given to any protections of the federal government, a case we refer to as the Dred Scott decision. They're using it against Kamala Harris to argue that she doesn't have the right to run for the presidency because she's not, in their view, a natural born citizen because her parents weren't born here, although she was. What are we talking about? I was wondering, what is the precedent that Republicans will cling to? What is it that they like? Found it. It's the one about slavery and how slaves don't have rights, to argue without irony, apparently, that the first African-American woman, also from with parentage, also from Southeast Asia, should not be the president of the United States. There was no other reason for this National Federation of Republican Assemblies, the NFRA, in their new platform and their new resolution to cite to the Dred Scott decision. I will tell you, I've been doing this thing called law for the last 32 years. I've studied the Constitution backwards and forwards and have been something of a scholar of the United States Constitution since I left law school. The only time you're allowed to cite Dred Scott is when you're talking about what was an abomination of the United States Supreme Court and the most reviled decision among many ever issued. This case by Chief Justice Roger Taney. And that would be Dred Scott. Unless you're talking about that, you're not allowed to bring up Dred Scott as part of your legal argument as to why somebody, especially somebody who is Black, can't be the president of the United States. You're just not allowed to do that. Dred Scott is off the table, or should be, but not to the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. This group of all of those people that are in legislators and legislation houses throughout the country, and you're Republican, that's your organization. And so they wanted to sort of, I don't know who came up. I'm sure it was a white guy who came up with the idea to cite to Dred Scott. Now, Dred Scott is a terrible, terrible case. I think there's two major cases that are equal in the shame brought on America and on the United States Supreme Court. One of them is Karematsu, which involved putting into concentration camps Japanese American citizens during the hysteria of World War II. And the other was Dred Scott. Dred Scott and his wife sued in Missouri because they moved to a free territory, having been slaves, for citizenship. And this is a case, after it went its way through the Missouri state system, he then filed a new suit that made its way after 11 years to the United States Supreme Court in 1857. Why is that important? Because this case, Dred Scott, in which the Supreme Court said not only does Dred Scott and his wife and other newly freed slaves do not have any federal recognition or any rights, but it also moved this country one step closer to that thing called the Civil War. And it wasn't until the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the 13th and 14th Amendment and the other post-Civil War issues or post-Civil War amendments to the Constitution that actually restored or gave to people like Dred Scott rights as citizens, as newly freed slaves, and now Black American citizens in our country. It wasn't until the Reconstruction period and the set of Reconstruction amendments. But for this white group to cite Dred Scott just shows how much of a tin ear they have and the optics of going after. Now, they're not the only ones that they attacked. They also went after Nikki Haley, and they went after Vivek, whatever his name is, who they also claimed could not run under this. Now, they're under their interpretation. The older I get, the more I find myself wanting to be more intentional about the way I live, eat, and take care of my body. MOSH, which you may have heard about on Shark Tank, was founded by Maria Shriver and her son, Patrick Schwarzenegger. And they have a simple mission: to create a conversation about brain health through food, education, and research. MOSH joined forces with the world's top scientists and functional nutritionists to go beyond your average protein bar. With 10 delicious flavors, including 3 that are plant-based, Each Mosh bar is made with ingredients that support brain health, like ashwagandha, lion's mane, collagen, and omega-3s. Mosh is now the first and only food brand boosted with cognizin, a premium nootropic that supplies the brain with a patented form of acetylcholine. Look, I can truly say Mosh bars taste heavenly, and I've been loving their banana bread bars. The energy boost these bad boys give me in the morning is unparalleled. With the fresh kick of energy and brain health supporting supplements in their fresh formulas, you can bet I'll be coming back to them. If you want to find ways to give back to others and fuel your body and your brain, Mosh bars are the perfect choice for you. Head to moshlife.com/legalaf to save 20% off plus free shipping on either the Bestsellers Trial Pack or the new Plant-Based Trial Pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on either the Bestsellers or Plant-Based Trial Pack at moshlife.com/legalaf. Thank you, Mosh, for sponsoring this episode. We all agree that the Constitution requires that somebody that runs for the presidency be a natural-born citizen. What does a natural-born citizen mean? It's not defined in the Constitution, but the way it's always been interpreted is that if you are born here, now there have been fights over birth before. John McCain was born on a military base, I believe in the Philippines, but that was considered U.S. territory, so he was natural born. But other people have been born in Canada and in other places, and they can't be naturalized. They have to be natural born here, but not their parents. They take it one step further and they say under the Dred Scott decision, which does not deal with natural born citizenship for the presidency at all. It deals with what I described. They argue that the parents of the baby born in this country also have to be from this country. You know who would be disqualified under that interpretation? A couple of presidents named George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, both of whose parents were born in England. Jefferson was born here. Washington was born here, but their parents weren't. So why don't we disqualify two of the greatest presidents in the United States history, including one of our founding fathers, and who's considered not arguably the greatest president of our lifetime of the United States history, in George Washington. But they history and facts and proper analysis don't matter to them. And the person that wrote Dred Scott into that resolution and cited it for no good reason other than they wanted to talk about a slave case in talking about Kamala Harris or anybody who's black and brown, like Nikki Haley and Vivek or whatever his name was. And the fact that got through a round of editing by other white racist MAGA within that organization, the NFRA, is just mind-boggling. It just shows you what this election is really about. It's for the soul of America and for patriotism and what you stand for. Donald Trump we already know, is unpresidential. He's unserious, and he's the incredible shrinking former president. He's now down to about 2 foot tall or lower and shrinking before our very eyes, and being ridiculed appropriately by the Harris-Walz campaign for good reason. But look what his lackeys and proxies are doing in his name, calling out the most reviled case in the United States Supreme Court history to use against Kamala Harris. How inappropriate, how racist, how disgusting, how unpatriotic. And the only way you can turn this dark chapter in American history led by MAGA and its cult leader, Donald Trump, is to turn the page on November the 5th and vote up and down the ballot. Blue. And I don't just want Kamala Harris to get in. She's going to get in. She's going to be Madam President. But I want her to have long coattails and sweep into office all the Democrats and into the Senate and the House in large enough numbers that it crushes MAGA once and for all. And I want to restore a two-party system here where we're currently one party short. In order to have a healthy two-party system, we only have two parties, right? We're not parliamentarians. We have two parties in this country. That's all we're left with. Winner take all. And, you need to have a second party. And we're one party short. It's a Democratic Party and a cult. Now, I believe that if you sat most Republicans down, the vast majority of them are not MAGA. Whether you want to call them country club Republicans or just Goldwater Republicans, Reagan Republicans, they still exist. Then there's this thing called MAGA, this pygmy thing, this aberrational thing, right? It's like Alien. You know, you got the host, and then you've got this monster that has resided within them. You got to get the monster out, and you got to crush it once and for all. And then you can have a healthy party that I can debate with on policy and maybe on certain aspects of values, but not on facts. And then you can have a coherent, viable constitutional republic in a two-party system. We need that. The Democrats need that too. We need a healthy party on the other side. We need to help them get healthy. And the way to do that is to stop and to pay them back for citing slavery cases as a reason to take Kamala Harris off the ballot. And there's only one way, in a binary way, you can exercise your power. Sure, you can donate money, but you can just vote. It's free. Just takes your time and effort. Get registered. Make sure you satisfy all the requirements, including some new ridiculous, stringent requirements, barriers to entry, and to suppress the vote in your state. Find out what that is. You got to bring your birth certificate. Go get your birth certificate. You got to bring your passport. Bring your passport. You got to bring your first grade teacher with you. Bring your first grade teacher with you. Get off the couch, not talking to you, JD Vance, and get registered. And early vote, and absentee vote if you have to, and mail-in vote if you have to, and stand in line from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. on the day of the election on November 5th if you have to. And vote like your life and the life of your family and children and grandchildren depends on it, because it does. Right? And that's where we're at the intersection of law and politics. Follow me, Michael Popok, every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on a show we call Legal AF. And now you know why we call it that. If you don't, join us. You'll find out. We curate the top shows at the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. And we bring it to you as practicing lawyers. We're not censored. We don't have outside investors. They don't tell us what to say. Nobody tells me what to say. I barely know what I'm going to say when I do a hot take. I have no notes, or notes that I can barely read. And that's it. We're unplugged. We're unfiltered. Sometimes we're unhinged in the defense of our democracy. And we ask you to join us and join Legal AF and the Meidas Mighty and this MeidasTouch YouTube channel. And then you can follow us if you like to watch your podcast being recorded. Join us on our YouTube Wednesdays and Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Or plug in Legal AF into your audio podcast platforms and we'll be there. We'll be there. Help us grow organically. We don't have outside investors. We are growing by word of mouth and by our bare hands. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.